Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from Group 1. My name is M.Dimas and my friends Anissa Fatonah Indah Khairil, Zakia Wahidah, Dislaran Anissa and Galuh Pramesti. In this video, we will present our presentations about Hofstede'S 6 cultural dimensions, and also we will explain our analysis about some issues that related to the impact of cultural differences on teaching practices. So, let's start the presentation. So we begin from the first dimension. The first dimension is called power distance. So the first thing I want to explain is why this dimension emerged. So it started from 1916. A Dutch social psychologist named Mark Mulder did experiments with individuals whom he gave different power relations, and after it, in 1917, Great Hofstede wrote the term when he wanted to describe differences between national societies. He conducted a large cross-country study of electrical distance spanning 50 different countries and thousands of employees from a large company. In the study, Hofstede distributed questionnaires to various IBM employees in various countries, asking if they were afraid to disagree with their superiors. During these studies, he observed the different level of power distance and management styles. Power distance also is caused by differences in positions, power, financial ability, because superiors have superior power that is higher than subordinates and often occurs in companies in general. According to Hofstede, power distance is a level of trust or acceptance of an unbalanced power in an organization or a company. This culture occurs when there is a perception that other people are considered superior compared to others. This is based on social status, gender, race, age, education, birth, achievement, background, so as to form a high power distance. So what is power distance? Power distance is a dimension of societal culture is the following. It is the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations expect and accept that power is distributed and unequally. Next, the characteristics of power distance. As we know that power distance can be divided into two, namely large power distance and small power distance. In small power distance, the first one is people are considered as essentially equal. Status is achieved through education, for instance, not inherited. And any inequality is one of conveniences in roles rather than existential. The second one is subordinates expect to be consulted. The third one is privilege and status symbols are frowned upon. The second one is about large power distance. The first one is people are considered as essentially unequal. Status is ascribed and is determined from birth. The second one is subordinates expect to be told what to do. The third one is visible signs of status are important and they signal somebody's authority. The fourth one is titles and formal ways of address are used frequently. The fifth one is age, wisdom, and life experiences are valued for their own sex. And the last one is older people are often considered to have more power and be of higher status than younger ones. The example of this dimension can we see in education environment between Indonesia as a country with large power distance with other countries that have small power distance. We can see from how the student treat and show their respect when they want to meet their teacher. The student will say excuse me with keeping their head down and do hand kissing, or in Indonesia we call salim. But in other countries that have small power distance, it will be just come in a class, then maybe just say hi, and when you get out, when the bells rings, you just like walk out and no respectful. Another one, the example of power distance that we can see in working environment. Superiors and subordinates will carry out some activities in different places. For example, during lunch. Superiors and subordinates have separate places to eat their meals. In other words, entrepreneurs or managers will not eat together with their subordinates and may have private facilities such as rooms, parking lot, and lift. The second dimension is uncertainty avoidance. Why this dimension emerged? Uncertainty avoidance occurs when one society or individual show behavior towards a change that happens in their life. And because of this change, as a result, they will interpret this change as ambiguous and uncertain conditions. This will bring up their way or thinking for how they can deal with the ambiguous or uncertainty that occurs. They might be feel comfortable or uncomfortable about this ambiguous or uncertain thing. So based on this, Uncertainty avoidance is the extent to which the members of a culture of a national society feel threatened by ambiguous and unknown situation. Characteristics of uncertainty avoidance. The first one is worry about uncertainty. People with high uncertainty avoidance feel comfortable when their present and future are in a clear situation and conditions. Meanwhile, individuals who have low uncertainty avoidance will still feel comfortable even though they do not have certainty about the present or future. The second one is concerned with the rules. The high uncertainty avoidance community attach importance to the existence of regulation, legal institution, and control that can reduce uncertainty, while the low uncertainty avoidance community has few regulations that are actually used and necessary. The third one is avoid conflict and competition. In a society of high uncertainty avoidance, conflict in the organization is undesirable. Competition between employees is unacceptable. Meanwhile, in a society organization, low uncertainty avoidance allows employees to compete with each other. There is hope for success. The fourth one is have low achievement motivation. People with high uncertainty avoidance have low achievement motivation. Meanwhile, people who value low uncertainty avoidance culture have strong achievement motivation. The fifth one is have a high stress level. The sixth one is avoid change. The seventh one is believe in expert opinions. And the last one is low participation in volunteer activities. People with low uncertainty avoidance tend to have high participation in social activities and activities that are beneficial to society. Example of uncertainty avoidance can we see in working environment when the manager held a meeting with his or her subordinates. When the manager asks about the subordinate's opinion or idea about their company productivity, the subordinates will not answer with their own perspective, and they will say, "We know that situation, but you are the manager. We just want to follow your regulation." This shows that the subordinates not believe in ordinary opinions. They just want to follow and trust with what their manager asks to them and what manager want to do. In Indonesia, for example, we can see by how Indonesians respond to ambiguity or uncertainty by applying rules, laws, and policies. For example, the increase in fuel price has caused by public unrest, and other example such as the high interest of the community to become employees, which they think that being an employee will guarantee their days, compared to entrepreneurs who have many risks, one of which is bankruptcy.
My name is Zakia Wahida. I would like to continue the material that my friend has been explained before. The next dimension is individualism versus collectivism. So this dimension explains the extent to which people of the countries are integrated together and their perceived obligation and dependence on groups. There are some characteristics for each society. In individualist society, people are respect for others' privacy, like they are reluctant to take responsibility for the action of others. Everyone is supposed to take care of him or herself and his or her immediate family only. Meanwhile, in collectivist society, the society is stressed on belonging. People are supposed to be loyal to group which they belong, and in exchange their group will defend their interest. People in individualist society also are enjoying for of something that challenging and expecting for personal rewards like personal achievement for their hard work and task prefers over relationship, and also the language in which the word I is indispensable. In the collectivist society, they are maintaining the harmony among group members. Relationship prefer over task, and the language in which the word I is avoided. They tend to use we to communicate with others. As you can see on the slide, the top three of the countries that have the highest score on individualism, the United States can be individualist since United States take the first place with 91 score. So this type of society is stressed on personal achievement and individual rights. People tend to have more loose relationship. So for instance, American people have a better quality of life and a higher standard of living than their parents. This belief that anyone, regardless of their status, can pull up their bootstraps and rise themselves from poverty. On the other hand, Pakistan and Indonesia and also the Colombia is the country with the low score and then categorized as collectivist society. For instance, Indonesia in the equation in child and parents, their desire to make their parents' life easier and take care of them and not sending their parents or grandparents to any institution like nursing home if they are in their old age, like they keep the maintaining a harmony among group member and family member, whereas individualist society focus is on the immediate family only. The next dimension is masculinity versus femininity. So this dimension refers to these distributions of roles between men and women, or basically if explains which sets of value are considered more important to a certain country. Let's take a look at each characteristic. So the characteristic of masculinity country is are the first one is admiration for the strong, and then fathers we deal with facts and mothers with feelings. Girls cry, boys don't, and then boys should fight back and girls shouldn't fight. And also people of this country is work prefers over family, and then money and achievement are important. In the other hand, the characteristic of femininity, people of this country is sympathy for the weak, like, and then both fathers and mothers deal with facts and feelings. Both boys and girls might cry, but neither should fight. And also, uh, people of the country, it's balance between family and work, and then more focus on quality of life. As you can see on the slide, top 3 of countries that have the highest score on masculinity. So Japan with 95 score make Japan is one of the most masculine society in the world. In Japan, there's a very competition between groups, like between female and male groups. From every young age at kindergarten, the children learn how to compete between groups, like on sport day and like for other groups. So the 4 female team members are just likely to display these masculine traits at their male classmates, for instance. And another example, like in Japan corporate, long hours are norm. Like it is make it harder to female team members to gain advancement due to the family commitments. So compared to these 3 countries that with a low score, like Netherlands with 14 scores, by comparison, Sweden is a very feminine society. Like here, people focus on managing to discussions and then also consensus and then negotiation. And more example, Netherlands with 14 score. Um, Here, it is important to keep the life and work balance. Like, but you have to make sure that all are included. And in Netherlands, like cooperate, an effective manager is supportive to his or her people, and also there the conflicts are resolved by compromise and negotiations.
Okay, so now I'll tell you about the long-term orientation. So, long-term orientation is when you are focused on your future. So, you just think that the most important thing that you need to do now is to prepare your future. And then to make it clear, I'll tell you about what is the characteristic of long-term orientation. Okay, the first one is about most important event in life will occur in the future. So, like I said before, you think that we need in life, you just need to think and to try prepare your best for your future, like that. And then another characteristic is a good person adapts to the circumstance. It means like long-term orientation believe that the good one is the one who can adapt with the current condition, who can adapt with the situation. And then tradition are adaptable to change circumstance. It is the third characteristic. It means like we believe our tradition, but we can to adapt it with the current condition, like that. And then trying to learn from the other countries. And then fast economic growth of countries up till a level of prosperity. It means like because we can adapt with the current condition, we can open our mindset about another's perspective. So that's why there will be a fast economic growth of the countries. So let me give an example. So here is the list of highest ranked countries that include of the long-term orientation. The first is China, and then Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. But here, I'd like to tell you about the Japanese. For example, like Japanese people always think that their life is a very short time, so they need to do the better way in their life. They need to prepare preparation for their future. So they usually act like they need to spend their time to work or to a positive thing that can make their future better. So now let's talk about another thing. It is about the short-term orientation. So short-term orientation is a term that when you are focused on the present or past and consider them more important than the future. Okay, talk about the characteristic. Of course, it's the opposite from the long-term orientation. So the first is most important event in life occur in the past or take place now. So I said before, we will think like we live now, so we just need to happy now. We just need to consume everything that will make us happy now. And talking about the future, we can think it later, like that. So the second one is personal steadiness and stability is like a good person is always the same. So we can say that they are consistent with yourself, even there is still a good way to be better. And then the third characteristic is about tradition are sacrosanct. It means like they put the tradition important than following the current situation, like that. And then supposed to be proud of one's country, cause slow or no economic growth of poor countries. It happens because they don't want to learn from another countries, another perspective, or they don't want to try to adapt their tradition with the current condition. So that's why it happens.
So here is the example of the lowest ranked countries for long-term orientation ratio. So there is a Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, Philippines, and Norway. Why I assume that this is a low orientation, because these countries or they just tend to consume and spend more than they save. So they didn't prepare about the future, then they didn't talk about the future. So that's why they conclude as a short-term orientation.
So now let's talk about indulgence. Indulgence is a free gratification of basic and natural human desires. So it means like the people emphasize their happiness to fulfill their desire. I mean the characteristic of indulgence are higher percentage of people declaring themselves very happy. So there's so many happy people here. And then the perception of personal life control, so it means they can control themselves. And then freedom of speech seen as important, more likely to remember positive emotion, and actively involved in sports. So when we read or hear about this characteristic, we can imagine that indulgence is like a happiness, freedom, and also healthy, like that. Okay, for example, I also find a list of countries that included in the indulgence like Venezuela, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and Colombia, and others. So we can categorize that this is a group of countries or peoples like feeling healthy, happy, and able to control their personal life. They build a positive vibe like optimism and then positive attitude and others. Now let us talk about the last material is about the restraint. It is the opposite from the indulgence. So restraint is when the societies that suppress gratification of needs by means a strict social norm. We can know it from the characteristic. The first is in that country or the culture, there are very happy people. What happens to me is not my own doing. They have a perception like that. And after that, freedom of speech is not a primary concern, so they can feel free to shout out what they want. And after that, less likely to remember positive emotions. And the last one is very people actively involved in sports because actually sports we can do sports when we are feel happy. So if we don't happy and we are under pressure or feel attracted, we'll less involved into the sports. So there is also a list or the name of the countries that included in a restricted countries, like there is a Zimbabwe, Portugal, and Poland. Why they include into a restricted countries? Because of in that countries people still tend to be far from the happy and they let alone prosperous, and it can be seen from there is a low the lower of birth, and then even though it is a healthy country but less inclined and tend to have lower approval of foreign films and music.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Galuh Pramesti. I'm number 58. I will explain about the main problem that contained in the articles. So, Article 1 is about the experience of pre-service teachers from Australia that teaching in Bangkok, Thailand. So, the problem that I found is different culture cause a different learning experience between the pre-service teachers from Australia and the Thai student. Alright, the problem is supported by some reasons that I found in the articles. The first reason is about the learning system in Thailand using the native language. So the student is usually use their native language even though they learn about English. And then the next reason is the pre-service directly use English while teaching the students. It makes students find the difficulties because they are usually use native language. So and then the last is the pre-service have limited knowledge about Thailand culture, especially about their native language. Okay, next is article from the experience of pre-service teacher from Korea that take practice teaching in America. So I found the problem that different education system between United States and South Korea and the impact on learning activity. Like this problem is found from some reason. The first one is about the various background from the students. So in America, they use a student as the center, and then in America, the teacher also have roles to take care about their students' condition beside the academic roles. And then seeing student as the center are more effective than teacher as the center because students can be more creative and active.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this opportunity, I will explain about analysis of the difficulties that pre-service teacher face while teaching students in other country in terms of Hofstede'S culture dimension. So based on the Galuh Pramesti has explained before about the problem and the reason of the first article, we take the conclusion that the first is use uncertainty avoidance about strong uncertainty avoidance. We can take the analysis based on the page 6 to the page 9, and then for the second article about differences of education system between US and South Korea and the impact on the learning activity, like Galuh Pramesti has explained before. For the reason we can take on our analysis is in the Hofstede dimension in a nutshell. For the second article, use the power distance, or we can take the analysis as the power distance, especially small power distance, because we can take the analysis based on the page 6 to 13, especially from the finding and the embracing multiculturalism as a reality. Sorry if we make mistake. That's all from us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.